I don't know what's going
Okay, we got it.
I'm going to need to keep my picture off for much of the time.
Okay, that's okay. Just do it.
Okay.
So good to see you all, other than a few people who are off screen for various reasons, health-wise or cameras not working and so forth. So we're going to begin by trying to set our motivation using words, that is prayers, and then we'll do our usual meditation to try to enhance that with some experience. Sangye chodang soki chognam la changchu badu dagni kepsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, the assembly of Arya Bodhisattvas. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye churang soki chognam la jangchu bardu dagni kapsuchi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho. So when we say it this way, sognam, any of you are familiar with the mantra of white Tara, Tari turi mama ayu puni ayur puni jnana pushtam kuru. So ayur means lifespan, puni means merit, that means the collection of merit, and jnana is yeshe, so that refers to the collection of wisdom. So when we say the Sognam ki, that's talking about the Puni and the Jnana. So the white Tara also is a long life deity. So it's the Pushtum Kurusoa. May they increase. May the lifespan, merit, and wisdom increase. And we offer a short mandala. By offering this ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. What makes more sense to you? Please release a rain, or please send down a rain of vast and profound. Okay, think about that. Give me your answer later. So we're going to meditate a little bit. So sit comfortably. Those who have just come in, hi, Louise. Sit comfortably with your spine erect. Remind yourself that there's nothing else that you have to think about now. Relax your body. Relax your mind. And place your attention on the mindfulness in front. And place your mindfulness, your attention on the breathing in front. And then once you've attended to it, once you recognize it, place your mindfulness on it. Hold it with mindfulness to the exclusion of everything else. Let go of other thoughts, memories of the past, plans of the future, maybe something you observe now in your body or your surroundings. If you're a little successful, you can switch your attention to the nature of the mental consciousness. If you're not successful, you can continue watching the breathing, but some of us will go to the mind. Let go of your mindfulness of the breathing. First, you have to recognize the mental consciousness before you can be mindful of its nature. You have to recognize its nature of clear light. The fact that it does not obstruct the arisal or the reabsorption of events in the mental consciousness. Mental consciousness has no color. So although it's sometimes referred to as space-like, or you might think that means sky, like blue or something, it has no color, has no shape. It's not an object of eye or ear, and so forth. It is said to be clear and knowing, and the clarity here has these two aspects. One that we're referring to generally, its quality of not obstructing, like space. Space doesn't obstruct the arisal of events within it. This clear light nature, if we analyze, we can recognize that it is our conventional Buddha nature, our developmental Buddha nature. The fact that because the mind is not stuck when thoughts come into it, they can reabsorb into it. And that thoughts that we have found difficult to generate, or emotions or mental events such as bodhicitta or wisdom or patience or love or renunciation, they, through our application, our meditation, they can be instilled into our mind without obstacle. There's no hindrance to their arisal. It's just a matter of familiarity. The fact that we can recognize this right now and perhaps through familiarity feel joy about it. I have everything I need. I have this developmental Buddha nature, and augmented by this auspicious moment of being a human in the middle of a religious country and so forth, not hindered by the 5 unfavorable conditions, or the 8 unfavorable conditions. Have a community of fellow aspirants, those who have realized the teachings, the Sangha and so forth, who are in the process of actualizing it, benefactors. There's nothing that I am missing. And with this auspicious moment, I could develop renunciation, which I have as yet not developed. I could develop bodhicitta, which I have difficulty even generating with effort. I could develop the wisdom that realizes emptiness. Although I may have some insights into it, I can enhance that much more. I can use this situation, this auspicious moment, to counter the 8 worldly dharmas and instead work for happiness of future lives at the minimum by collecting virtuous karma and abstaining from negativity. Work for liberation from cyclic existence, because even if I found a human or God rebirth in the future, they would also end. Or I could work for full enlightenment, as the Buddha advised those of intelligence not to be satisfied with his teachings on the lesser vehicle, his lesser vehicle, he said, which brings you to the destination of nirvana. Numberless lives in the past, I've been circling in the lower realms. Those few times I've come up to the upper realms, I've wasted it on trivial activities of this life alone. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here now, still in cyclic existence. This time, with clarity, I can see the benefit of working for enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. Bodhicitta, which is one of the most powerful ways to accumulate merit and to purify negative karma. To achieve that state, I have to have collected I have to accumulate the 2 collections of merit and wisdom, of punya and jnana, which I know little about. So as Nagarjuna has explained in his fundamental wisdom, Chandrakirti has expounded upon it in his meaning commentary, the Madhyamaka Vatara, and Lama Khapa has commented on Chandrakirti's commentary, making it more accessible. Our class today on the illumination of the intent. I think I'm going to participate We're going to listen, contemplate, meditate in order to accumulate the two collections, in order to become eventually enlightened for the sake of all sentient beings. That's my goal. And then relaxing a little bit, bringing your attention back to the present. Good to see you. I've got some quite dry mouth today. I'm taking another medication to get rid of water in my body, diuretic. So my mouth is dry as a result. So I'll be sipping. So how are we doing? Anyone have any comments or questions in general? Comments about the meditation, observations about the meditation, or Dharma questions? Nothing is. I heard someone about to say something there almost. Okay, maybe not. So I wanted to mention before we begin an old Dharma friend of mine from Singapore, Charlie McDowell. We always called him Charlie. I guess he's Charles, but I never called him Charles. Charlie. He has been diagnosed with colon cancer, which has spread to his liver and intestines, and is in the hospital in Singapore. I've known Charlie for many years. When I taught there, has a Malaysian wife and three daughters, son, I think, and always stories throughout the years, problems here, problems there. He thought someone was putting a spell on him, or his wife said someone was putting a spell on them, and going to people with divinations and pujas and everything. So I thought not in honor of him, but kind of with that connection, this famous verse from the Lama Chopa Puja, the Guru Buddha. Jowa Shidan Dempe Tapke Gi Tela Kangtu Gompa Gomla Jowadang Lojung Damsik Labche Nyamlengi Deljo Donchen Chepa Jingilo. Now, Paul may recognize the Tibetan, but I wonder if any of you have said Lama Chopa enough times to know what this verse is about. Anyone? Yeah. So in the Dalai Lama,
in English.
If I say it in English, then maybe. Okay. So from Dalai Lama's, the translation of the Dalai Lama's book, The Union of Bliss and Emptiness, is translated by Jimpa. So this is Jimpa's translation of this verse, not the FPMT version. Inspire me to immediately conjoin whatever I meet to meditation by the skillful means of having the four applications, and to make this opportune rebirth worthwhile by practicing the advice and commitments of the training of the mind, of mind training. So when it talks about here, this is one of the verses talking about lojong, training of the mind. After having trained in the person of beginning scope and intermediate scope, then there are many verses about the developing bodhicitta, and then particularly from the 7-point training of the mind, several verses. This is one of them. So it gets several of the key advices of mind training in it. Where it says, Jowa Shiran Tempe Tapkeki. So with the skillful means of having the four applications. So what are those four applications? The Dalai Lama has said, well, let's see, what this is talking about. Does anyone know what the four applications are? First of all, maybe some of you know. Rachel, do you know?
Meditate. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Don, what are the four?
Meditation on mind, feelings, or body, feelings, mind, and phenomena.
Maybe somewhere. That's not what's meant here. So here, what's meant. In fact, I don't mean that as a criticism, because even people who've translated Lama Chopa sometimes mistake what these Jo or Shi are, what these four applications are. What it's talking about is what you should do when bad things happen to you and when good things happen to you. So when negative things happen to you, when you experience suffering of some kind or misfortune or illness or so forth, you should accumulate merit, for one thing, to create the causes to be successful, to overcome. Let's say if you're lacking something, you should create virtuous karma, offer mandala, and so forth. And you should do the practice of purification. If the events that you were experiencing haven't completely ripened yet, you can sometimes purify them, but you can certainly purify the other things that may be coming up to you in the future. So two of the four applications are the accumulation of merit and purifying negative actions. The other two are to make offerings to harmful spirits, offering tormas to harmful spirits. It can be also just praying to them also. Like say, there are two reasons. If they are affecting you, harmful spirits, like Charlie was always thinking there's someone, someone's got a spell, put a spell on him or something. From the Lojong point of view, what would you think you would want to do to those with respect to those spirits? You might think you would offer them tormas so they would stop, right? Does that make sense? Paul, you're not nodding your head.
No, I'm saying that makes sense. Yes, you would think that.
Okay, you would think that. But from the Lojong point of view, what you do is offer them tormas and say, how is it? What was that? I just saw some emoji the other day of the Matrix, the first Matrix, where the one guy was, bring it on, bring it on. So you offer tormas to the spirits and say, bring it on, so that you can use their interference to overcome your self-cherishing thought. Now, the ordinary way of thinking of it, and the way most people think of it, is it's not the way that it's meant in the Lojong here when it's talking about offering tormas to the spirits. One thinks you offer them so they would go away, they'd be pacified. If what is happening, the interference that's happening is happening to other people also, then you can offer torma to the spirits and say, listen, enough is enough. Please accept this and go away, right? Like at the beginning of tantric rituals and so forth, we offer torma to the interferers to go away because it's interfering with this higher purpose. The last one is to entrust our activities, and reading this from the Dalai Lama's commentary, entrusting the Dharma protectors with activities. That is to say, making offerings or prayers to the Dharma protectors. Some of you may have a Dharma protector that you have encountered through the practice of some tantric practice, or you can be just aware in general that there are protectors of the Dharma that are actually enlightened beings taking sometimes a wrathful form that are more accessible to us because they look more mundane, like Palden Lama or Mahakala and like this. And that you can entrust activities to them of ask them to pacify or to increase your wisdom and so forth and so on. So there's always something you can do when you encounter these kinds of problems. So also when when you're experiencing good things, you can accumulate more merit thinking, wow, this cooperative condition I'm experiencing right now is very beneficial. It's allowing me to practice the Dharma well. It has come about because of my collection of karma in the past, virtuous karma. I don't want to be bereft of this in the future. I don't usually use the word bereft. It's just that Jimpa's used it many times in this, sort of bouncing around in my mind. I don't want to be bereft of these conditions in the future, so I'm going to collect merits for that purpose, to be not just to be comfortable in the future, but to have the condition to continue to practice. So I'll just read this one paragraph that the Dalai Lama's commentary, when he gave this teaching. He's given many commentaries on Lama Chopa, but this particular one came out as a book called The Union of Bliss and Emptiness. Here one is requesting the harmful spirits to inflict more harms upon oneself, because if they do, it affects one's self-cherishing attitude. Normally, we would ask them not to disturb us. Here it also mentions requesting activities of the Dharmapalas, the Dharma protectors. Pala means protector. Mentions requesting activities of the Dharmapalas in order to have a very successful practice of thought transformation. The text then goes on to explain the 18 commitments of the Lojong, the thought transformation, and the precepts of thought transformation practice. So that's alluded to in the other line. So the first line said, Droa Shidan Tempe Tapkehi, with a skillful means of possessing the 4 applications. May I join whatever I encounter, Telakangtu, Gomla Joradang, may I join whatever I encounter with meditation. So that's it sounds like it's part of the same sentence, but it's another precept of the mind training. And then it says, Lojung Damsek Labche Nyamlengi, with the practice of the commitments and the advices of the mind training, grant me blessings to make this auspicious moment, this life of leisure and endowment, Deljor Donchen Chepar Jinkilo, to create great purpose to this, to make it meaningful, to make this life of leisure and endowment meaningful. So I've introduced that. So this is what Charlie should have been doing all those many years and decades when he was, asking for protection and spells and having arguments with people. We should have been training them, putting us all in the mind train. Okay. So John has joined us also. Good to see you guys. So how are we doing? Everyone okay? Okay. So we're going to start in the text. So just to go over a little bit to quickly review the previous outline that said the response that worldly convention does not invalidate this refutation. So what are we talking about here? We've already refuted generation from other. And some people say that you don't need logic to do this. It's just common convention that things arise from others. So this is in response to that. So we already talked about this before. Just quickly reading what Jimpa translated. Those who do not understand without distortion the meaning of the scriptures, those who are bereft of the means of repeated study of the nature of non-intrinsic existence, that helps one part from the long-acquainted friend, this long-acquainted friend of manifest clinging to the true existence of things, arising from, stemming from the ripening of habitual propensities for grasping a true existence imprinted within during the beginningless cycles of existence. Long sentence, right? Such people might appeal to mere worldly convention, the arbitrary terms of the world. Now, this objection from arbitrary world conventions cannot be averted easily. That is to say, this particular objection it is a complicated question. And that's why Lama Tsongkhapa is going to go through detail about this. This is why we need to have a presentation of the two truths. This cannot be averted easily. It requires a lot of explanation about how the conventions of the world came to be or come to be. Conventions of the world, you know, like that's a horse, that's a tree, I'm me, so forth and so on. For one thing, one needs to demonstrate how the perspective of the world can invalidate, in the case of certain phenomena, identifying the specific characteristics of such a category of facts, and demonstrate how the worldly perspective cannot invalidate the case of another category of facts. Okay. So we've heard this before, right? Everyone sort of following? So then, to do this, Jimpa translates, one must first present the differentiation of the two truths. So we've gone over that. This has all of these outlines, general presentation of the two truths, relating the presentation to the actual context, and so forth. There are 5 general outlines. We'll be dealing with the first one for a while, the general presentation of the two truths. That itself has 4 parts. How phenomena differentiated in terms of the two truths have dual natures. That's where we're at right now. And we're just about to transition to the second part, further presentation of the two truths. Then there are 2 other parts to that. So the first part, how phenomena differentiated in terms of the two truths have dual natures. And so we've talked about this. This is the 23rd stanza of the 6th chapter. All entities bear dual natures as obtained or found, you could say, by correct or false views of them. So if you have a correct view, if you're correctly seeing, that would be the ultimate nature. If you are finding something by false seeing, that means by a mind that's obscured by ignorance, that would be the conventional truth or the truth for a concealing mind. In Tibetan, we write kunsop demba. What is seen by perfect vision is the ultimate truth, and what is seen by false vision is a conventional truth. It is taught. Right? So Jeffrey's translation of the first two lines, Buddha said that all things have two natures, those found by perceptions of reality and by perceptions of falsities. Okay, so that's what we were talking about. The Buddha who realizes without distortion the individual natures of the two truths. That's plural, yeah. The Buddhas, they're supermundane victors who realize without distortion the individual natures of the two truths, have shown that all entities, both inner, such as the motivational factors like intention and so on, and outer, such as sprouts and so on, bear or uphold two natures. What are they? It is their nature in terms of conventional truth and their nature in terms of ultimate truth. They bear two natures, Jimpa says. Jeffrey translates that the Buddhists teach that the entities of all things, internal, such as compositional factors of intention and so forth, are twofold. What are these? An entity that is a conventional truth and an entity that is an ultimate truth. So Jimpa is translating that as nature. It's actually mo here. This indicates that when differentiated, there are two natures, even in the case of a single entity such as a sprout. And when we talk about a sprout, it has a conventional and an ultimate nature, or conventional and ultimate entity. That one thing, in fact, they can't be separated. They are sort of one with the sprout. It certainly does not indicate that one in the same entity, that single sprout, for example, is one truth or another, depending upon whether the point of view is that of an ordinary person or of an Arya. Regardless of who's looking at it, it has these two truths. Rachel, what do you think?
So this part doesn't really make sense to me. Like, my understanding is that that's sort of the definition of these two distinctions between the conventional and the ultimate. Whether or not the mind that's observing that object is in that state is definitely a part of that. So how can we say that the nature of the phenomena has nothing to do with that?
It has nothing to do with what?
The state of mind that's observing it, that phenomena.
Yeah. Well, the nature does depend upon that, but here it says it does not indicate that one and the same entity, the single sprout, for example, is one truth or the other, is a conventional truth or an ultimate truth, depending upon the point of view of whether it's an ordinary person looking at it, seemingly that would therefore be a conventional truth, and whether an Arya is perceiving it in meditative equipoise, in which case it would be an ultimate truth. That's not what's being said here, although it is the case that in general, when ordinary beings who have not realized emptiness perceive something like a sprout, that they are perceiving a conventional truth. It is not, they don't perceive it as a conventional truth. They perceive a conventional truth. This coming stanzas. Do you remember the difference between that? Difference of that? And it is also the case that Arya beings, when they meditate on emptiness of phenomena, they perceive an ultimate truth, but they also, when they arise from meditative equipoise, they perceive conventional truths. So it's a little bit hazy there. I agree, Rachel, but let's follow on a little bit here. This understood, taking this as our starting point, it is furthermore impossible for a phenomenon to have no nature at all. Or as Jeffrey says, taken that way, since there is no occurrence of a phenomenon lacking an entity. Very simply stated, remember when I talked about the word dharma having at least 13 different definitions? One of them is that which upholds its own entity. So if something doesn't have an entity at all, doesn't have any nature at all, it doesn't fall within the purview of being a phenomenon, right? If it has no nature. Or as Jimpa says, this understood, it is furthermore impossible for a phenomenon to have no nature at all. So insofar as something is an established base, shidup, which is what those of you who've studied Dura a little bit, you remember we talked about last time, it must either be identical in nature or different in nature from other things. That to me is not so clear. Jeffrey's translation is a little bit clearer. Whatever our established bases, that is our existence. So that's referring to more than one thing, right? They do not pass beyond being either one entity or different entities. So if you take two existent phenomena, it does not pass beyond. They have to be either one entity or different entities. That's something that we've talked about a lot before. And then further, it is not contradictory that an inherently existent entity does not exist. Right? Even though that we're talking about that. Furthermore, it is not inconsistent to accept things to possess a nature, yet reject that they possess intrinsic nature. So to have natures doesn't mean that they have to have inherently existent nature, or as Jimpa likes to translate, inherent nature, intrinsic nature. Then here, the ultimate nature of entities such as sprouts is the nature of the thing obtained as the object of a specific gnosis by those who possess correct view and who directly perceive the perfect truth. So ultimate nature, or as Jeffrey translated, with respect to this, the ultimate entity of things, such as sprouts and so forth, gains its own entity. What does he say, footnote A? Dagi ranging o, yeah. It gains its own entity. That means it comes into existence. Where is that? With respect to this, the ultimate entity of things, such as sprouts, or as Jimpa says, the ultimate nature of things, such as sprouts, gains its own entity. Now, what does that mean, to gain its own entity? Does anyone want to make a stab at that?
Well, Venerable George, since objects are not established from their own side, the only way they can have an entity would be in reference to the consciousness perceiving it, is what I would think.
Yeah. So they gain that, or that entity is found. So ngo don dampane yang dakpe don ngonsum du tongwa nam ki yeshe ki kepa ki yu nida. Okay, now I'm reading the wrong paragraph there. Okay, I won't try to find that. Here, the ultimate nature of entities such as sprouts is the nature of things obtained as the specific as the object of specific gnosis by those who possess correct view and directly perceive the perfect truth.
It starts Dela Nyugula Sokbe Ngobo Ngowo Dundampani.
I don't have the whole one there, but it's
Oh.
talking about with Jeffrey has his note A there, Daging Rangingo. I think Jimpa leaves off the Dagingo. An ultimate truth, with respect to this, the ultimate entity of things such as sprouts and so forth gains its own entity. That ultimate nature of things comes about as something that can be perceived through being the object itself of a specific pristine wisdom of those who directly see the meaning of reality. That is to say, emptiness. It is not established by way of its own essence or selfness. That's Dagni. There's various synonyms of hypothetical self. It doesn't come about because it has its own self entity. It comes about because of being found by a very specific kind of wisdom. Not any wisdom of the Aryas, but a specific one that realizes emptiness directly. Let me continue in Jeffrey's translation. An ultimate truth is not found by just any pristine wisdom of an Arya. Rather, it is found by, quote, a specific pristine wisdom, a specific gnosis, which is to be taken as a specific type or particular type of gnosis, pristine wisdom. It is found, moreover, by a pristine wisdom, gnosis, comprehending, this is where we ended last time, comprehending the mode of being of phenomena, that is comprehending the Jitawa in Tibetan. Paul or John, do you know in Sanskrit what Jitawa is?
Is that sakshat? Maybe.
Jitawa, isn't it usually like yatta? It's like
Yatharth or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, if you fellows will check, the opposite of that is Jinepa. Jitawa kind of sounds like whatever, how it is Jitawa, G kind of like how it is seen. That means how it is seen with pristine wisdom. That means the ultimate nature of things. Jinepa means how it is.
What's found almost like, yeah.
How
It's
it
like
is-
it's how it's found. So there's
it's
how it
found, yeah,
appears
yeah.
and then how it's found under,
in the multiplicity of conventional appearances. So here, Jeffrey's translating it is found by a pristine wisdom comprehending the mode, that's the Jitawa, of being of phenomena, emptiness. Jimpa translates that is to say it is obtained by the gnosis that realizes the way things really are. Okay, that's good. That's more simple, just Jitawa, but just so that you know, there's some technical words that are being used here. Okay. Then Jeffrey translates, when Chandrakirti indicates that an ultimate truth is found or established by that pristine wisdom. So what does that mean? For something to have existence, as Paul pointed out, it has to be in relationship to a consciousness that observes it in such a way that it can be established as existing, or that it is found by that consciousness. So that's why here in the text, there are these two words, found or established. How does Jimpa say here? Now, in presenting this as specific gnosis indicates that it is not obtained by just any gnosis of an Arya. Rather, it must be a specific or particular type of gnosis. That is to say, it is obtained by the gnosis that realizes the way things really are. Then Jimpa's translation says, now in presenting this as obtained or established, obtained, you could say found or established by that gnosis. So why would we say found? Because generally when we talk about searching for phenomena, we want to search to see if you can find the basis of designation. That's kind of the sense of translating finding or found or established. Jimpa translates it obtained or established by that gnosis. Jimpa's translation said, now in presenting this as obtained or established by that gnosis, one might wonder whether something established by that gnosis must be truly existent. Jeffrey translated, it might be held that when Chandrakirti indicates that an ultimate truth is found or established by that pristine wisdom, it might be held, there might be a doubt, one might think that if there was something established by pristine wisdom, it would be truly established. Why would that be? Mikhail?
Yeah, the thing is, when you're searching for a conventional phenomenon, you find only its emptiness, and you could think that that emptiness, being the ultimate, is itself ultimately existent. But actually, if you look for that emptiness, you will find its own emptiness. Am I clear? Was that clear?
Yeah, I didn't quite agree with the first part. When you're searching for a conventional thing, you'll find it with conventional analysis. If you don't, you can say,
Yeah, you need to do an ultimate analysis to find
right.
its ultimate
So
existence.
when you search for it, ultimately, you're not satisfied with just saying, that's Mikhail over there in the corner, the guy in the gray sweaters and the gray sweater and the glasses. And you say, well, yeah, but what is, what is Mikhail? You're searching within the aggregates. You don't find anything at the end. So that's why rather than obtained, Jeffrey translates, indicates that an ultimate truth is found. So you find an ultimate truth. How do you find an ultimate truth? By not finding the object that you were seeking. So that's a very sort of mind-blowing kind of thing. You find something by not finding. What you're looking for is an inherently existent thing. You're analyzing. Is there an inherently existent, say in your own mind stream, the I that appears to you, the object of negation, appears to be inherently existent, and you're searching to see if you can find that, if there is such a thing that is existing from its own side, because it seems like it is. You have that feeling that it is existing. If you don't find it, you don't find that inherently existent object, what have you found? Don?
It's emptiness.
It's emptiness of inherent existence.
Yeah, you found emptiness. So it's a fine, you find something by not finding. Okay, so anyway, let's continue. So it might be held that if there is something established by pristine wisdom, it must be truly established, truly existent. It is truly existent, or would be truly existent. So that's the thought here. So that the thought is that if you're talking about ultimate analysis, and if there's something that's established by that, which in the end is going to be emptiness, right? That it would have to be truly existent, because what you're looking for is something truly existent. But the finding, the finding here, what you find, the emptiness is by not finding the truly existent phenomena. How's this going over? Richard, how are you doing? Okay. Rocio?
This is actually getting exactly to the point of my question from last time, which is that, if the nature is in the object, if the nature is in the object and not in the mind of the Arya or the ordinary being, then it's very easy to understand why somebody would think that it's established in the object. And what this is doing is explaining that it is not established inherently in the object, but it's
Is the nature in the mind, is the nature actually in the mind of the person who's perceiving it?
That's how I understand. It's in the pristine. It's in the way I'm thinking of it is it's in the interaction between whatever the object is and the pristine wisdom of those who directly see its meaning. That's sort of how I'm
sure. I'm not sure you'd say that. Interesting. I'm not sure you'd say the nature is in the mind of the person. But anyway, let's continue a little bit further. So going here by Jeffries, which translation, which I find a little more precise for these complicated things. So when Chandrakirti indicates that an ultimate truth is found or established by that pristine wisdom, it might be held, it might be thought by someone that if there is something established by that pristine wisdom, it would be truly established, truly existent. To refute that, he says, it is not established by way of its own selfness, or as Jimpa translates, its own essence. So he's just saying that in that verse, those first two lines, it said, the Buddha said that all things have two natures, those 5%. No. So in his commentary, in Chandrakirti's commentary to that verse, in the Madhyamaka Bhashyam, he says that is not established by way of its own selfless or selfness. It's difficult selfness. Do we even say that in English? That's dakni. So dakni often is translated as essence, and that's how Jimpa is translated. That means it's not established from its own side. Hence, Jeffrey continues, those who propound that it is the system of this master. So someone's saying that they're saying, therefore, it's Chandrakirti's system, his logic, that if a pristine wisdom, a gnosis of meditative equipoise, were to comprehend an ultimate truth, that ultimate would be truly established, and therefore the ultimate is not an object of knowledge. Those people have not at all realized the meaning of Chandrakirti's explanation that although ultimate truth is found by a consciousness in meditative equipoise, ultimate truth is found by a consciousness in meditative equipoise, it is not truly established.
Yeah.
Right? So what you find is emptiness by not finding its true existence. And therefore, what you found doesn't have the fault of being truly existent, truly established. Not realizing such, not realizing this situation, people that say that cause the degeneration of a wise being's system. I may have noticed a hand up before. Did someone have a hand up and then did they have a comment or question, anyone?
KT had her hand up at one point.
Oh, KT, yeah.
I was just thinking, thanks, about these difficult topics for me, but does a sprout exist without a view seeking to find it?
Well, let's
I
say
mean,
if you
but
ask
that's
your
tough. Yeah.
if you ask your niece, do you have a niece
Yes, I do. Yeah.
or a little kid? And does that flower exist? They'll say, yeah. They don't have to search, have any kind of philosophical point of view. It's just, the convention of the world, right?
That's a false view, even according to
Right. A philosopher would say that, but you would be well advised not to talk to the kids in the playground and say, none of this exists. This is all due to your false view. That would not be skillful means, probably.
No.
Okay. So how we doing? Does that as KT pointed out, that's quite, and as I mentioned earlier, this section has some difficult points, not sort of as obscure as some of the things we've talked about before, but some things that you really have to think about. Is it making sense so far? Okay, good. Okay, I see some affirmations. I don't see any. Oh, okay. All right, here we go. So Doris is going to ask me if I want to take a break, but I'm going to wait a little while. Shankar, what do you think?
So I'm just trying. So is this getting towards the idea of the non-implicative negation? I mean, that's basically what we're talking about here, right? That when you find the emptiness of something, you don't find something in its stead. You just find an absence, and there is
It's
no.
related. That's definitely related, but that's not being immediately addressed here about
I see.
non-affirming negation or non.
Okay, I'll wait. I'll keep going.
That's not immediately here the point. The point is that in searching for something such as inherent existence, the fact that you don't find it, that itself is the realization of emptiness. That itself is a finding of emptiness. So Stephen, what do you think?
Thank you, Venerable George. So here we have the sentence that begins with, hence those who propound that it is the system of this master, that if a pristine wisdom of meditative equipoise, ... that's the mistaken view. But then what does it mean, that phrase that says, therefore the ultimate is not an object of knowledge? And that's in the view of the mistaken person, correct?
Oh, okay. So you ... is right there. Therefore, the ultimate is not an object of knowledge. Yeah, that is that would be the conclusion of someone who held that view. And that is, as note C there in Jeffrey's text says, that is not dopulpa. So this came up just before class when we were, some people who come early, we get a chance to talk about the Dharma. Sometimes I talk about my worldly things also, but Nadine had asked about this. She thought that sentence was wrong, right, Nadine? You thought at the time that there should be a not in there. Where's Nadine?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But now I see.
Right. So can you explain what you were thinking at the time?
I was thinking that Dolpopa also holds the view that the ultimate is not an object of knowledge. But this footnote says that the Prabhupada knows that the ultimate is an object of knowledge, but other people hold this position.
Yeah, so the Pope doesn't have a correct view, but he says that the ultimate can be perceived, right? So this is not referring to Dopolpa. So it might be referring to Mipam, who was another person who had, Lama Tsong Khapa was able to refute these different views. One view is saying that if the ultimate is found by this meditative equipoise on emptiness, that therefore it must be truly existent, because the meditative equipoise is looking for true existence, right? So if it's found, not realizing the difference between what is found, the different meanings of finding, that view, then therefore that would be truly existent. Let's see. It is not established by way of, hence those who propound that this is a system, the system of Chandrakirti, that if a pristine wisdom, if a gnosis of meditative equipoise on emptiness, comprehended an ultimate truth, which is emptiness, the only ultimate truth is emptiness, that ultimate truth, that ultimate would be truly existent, would be truly established, because you were searching for something that was truly existent, right? And you found it. And because of that, therefore, the ultimate is not an object of knowledge. Those people have not at all realized the meaning of Chandrakirti's explanation. So what does that mean? Why would that be, if it would be truly existent, why would therefore the ultimate truth, or ultimate emptiness, would not be an object of knowledge?
Yeah, I'm pretty lost here.
John, what you're lost?
Yeah, I'm lost.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm glad you're lost.
I have a.
We've got a beacon here. We're going to try to get you back. Yeah, Shankar, can you help him?
Well, I actually don't know, but my thought, he knows a lot more than I do, so I'm pretty sure that the answer is going to be no. But my thought was, okay, I can see the viewpoint of the mistaken people here, because if you say something is a phenomenon, right? Which is also the same as an existent, which is also the same as a thing, and all those, so it has to be an object of knowledge, right? If you don't find that thing, how can it be an object of knowledge? That's what I would think if I were in their shoes.
Okay. How about you, Mikhail?
I think that the opponent is thinking that if you can find that object, then it has to exist ultimately. So they are saying that because the ultimate is not ultimately existent, it cannot be an object of knowledge, because if it were, it would exist ultimately.
Yeah, the position is that phenomena, all the position of the lowers is that there's no true, well, let's say of the Mahayana schools, there's no true existence. True existence doesn't exist. So that if you were to find the ultimate in this meditative equipoise, it would therefore, by this mistaken reasoning, be truly existent. But because true existence, they accept true existence doesn't exist. What does it say? That if a pristine wisdom of meditative equipoise comprehended an ultimate truth, the ultimate would be truly established, and therefore, the ultimate is not an object of knowledge for them. They're saying that you can't perceive the ultimate because if you were to perceive it in meditative equipoise, you would have found it, and it would be truly existent, which doesn't exist. So you cannot perceive it. So that's one kind of school of thought that.
Okay, repeat that last sentence, please. That you just somewhere in there. I'm like Doris, you know. Maybe there weren't too many negatives, but I got lost in there.
Okay, so it's not that you have to put on your debating pants.
See, this is why I need to know debate.
Yeah, no, you don't need to know debate, but yeah, you know. So the position is that some people say that you can perceive emptiness, and others, or ultimate truth, others say that you cannot perceive it. It's unperceivable. Maybe through some kind of statements like Masam Jome, Sherab Parochin, you know, unimaginable, inexpressible, and so forth is the perfection. With maybe some people misinterpreting along those lines, saying that you know the ultimate doesn't exist.
That's unknowable.
Is unknowable, right? It is not an object of knowledge. Sorry, and not that it does not exist. It is not an object of knowledge. It is something that is there, but can't be known. Okay, so one logic is that with that meditative equipoise, if you were to have found the ultimate, because you were, you know, what you were searching for was a truly existent phenomena, and if you find the ultimate, am I saying this right? If you yeah, how does he say here? That if a pristine wisdom of meditative equipoise, if that gnosis comprehended an ultimate truth, if it realized it, rather than saying it found it, if it realized it, if it knows it, that it would have to be truly established. It would have to be truly existent, that thing that it's knowing. But that system, those Mahayana systems, Mipam and Dolpopa and so forth, say that phenomena are not truly existent. I think maybe Dolpopa. I'm not sure about Dolpopa.
I'm sorry. So what they're saying is that because you found something under ultimate analysis, it must be ultimately existent.
Right. It must be truly existent.
Oh
right?
my God. Okay. Thank you.
John, are you finding your way yet? We can set up some flares.
I think partly, but I'm just confused maybe with the way that is being presented, because it looks to me like there's a twofold mistake being laid out in a single sentence. So I'm just following the Hopkins here.
Right.
Indicates that an ultimate truth is found when Chandrakirti indicates that ultimate truth is found or is established by pristine wisdom. He's acknowledging that it really is something is established by pristine wisdom. But then the mistake comes in, oh, that means it must be truly established. And to refute that, says it is not established by way of its own selfness. So then it goes on to the critique of the wrong view, those who propound that it's the system of this master, blah, 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 compliment and ultimate. It would be truly established. That's already one mistake. Therefore, it goes to this next, and I don't see how these are two errors obviously are related. Therefore,
Okay, so the first error,
knowledge at all.
The first error, you see why they come to that error, that
Yes.
because you found it, it has to be truly existent. But remember our discussion before, the finding of the ultimate, the finding of emptiness here is due to not finding
Right.
true existence, inherent
Establish-
existence.
Establishing
Because you
object.
always have to, you always are analyzing a conventionality. Even if you're analyzing the emptiness of emptiness, you're talking about emptiness as a conventionality. Let's say you're looking for the emptiness of a sprout. Sprout is a conventionality, right?
Right.
And it appears to be inherently existent. So when you search for that inherently existent sprout, you don't find it. That's a not finding. But by not finding that, you found emptiness.
Mhm.
You establish emptiness, because he does say there, find or establish. There's kind of synonyms here, right? Jimpa says obtained or established.
Mhm.
So that's the first mistake. And then, well, it's sort of a corollary of that. It would be truly established, and that therefore the ultimate emptiness is not an object of knowledge, because that would be an absurd conclusion to say that emptiness is truly existent, because nothing is inherent, nothing is truly existent.
I see. So is it possible that here, although he doesn't elaborate on it, that there's a critique of those who are over negating and a critique of those who are under negating, and Dolpopa is
There's
actually
sort of something, yeah.
under
This,
negator.
yeah.
This is the over negators.
This is saying that emptiness is not an object of knowledge. Okay, let's continue a little bit longer, then we're going to take a break for just a little bit further. So not realizing, say, they have not at all realized the meaning of Chandrakirti's explanation that although ultimate truth is found by a consciousness in meditative equipoise, it is not truly established. Why is that? It's found by not finding what you were searching for, a truly existent or truly established phenomena. And that not finding is the finding of emptiness. So that's a very crucial point here, although it's not expressed in words. Then it says, not realizing such, not realizing Chandrakirti's explanation that although ultimate truth is found by a consciousness, it is not truly established. Not realizing that, they cause the degeneration of a wise being system. And then just to introduce, before we take a break, so that we were talking about the entity or nature of the ultimate nature. Now talking about the conventional, on the other hand, because there are two natures, there are two entities. Every phenomena has two natures. The entity of the conventional, or as Chimpa says, the conventional nature, the entity of the conventional, which is other than the ultimate, right? The two different natures, just to point out, it's not as opposed to the ultimate, gains its existence, or gains the existence of its own entity through the force of perceptions of falsities by common beings whose mental eyes are completely covered over by the darkening cataracts of ignorance. Its own entity does not exist in accordance with how it appears to be established by way of its own character as an object seen by childish beings, or you could say as by the naive. This is one of the two entities. So what does that mean? The conventional nature of phenomena, as opposed to the ultimate, it has to come into existence through some perception, as some of you have pointed out, gains the existence of its own entity through the force of of perceptions here, not a specific gnosis of the arias in the case of ultimate truth, but by the force of perceptions of falsities by common beings. Jimpa says, through the force of their false views. Here, Jeffrey is saying, through the force of the perceptions of falsities. So what does that mean by common beings? So what appears to us, flowers, trees, cars, your computer, yourself, everything, they are appearing to be inherently existent, but they are not. So they're actually falsities or false, right? They're considered to be true by ordinary beings. That's why they're called, they're considered to be true by ordinary beings who have ignorance. That is this perception of falsities whose mental eye of common beings, whose mental eyes are completely covered over by the darkening cataracts of ignorance. Near the beginning of the 6th chapter, we pointed out there was a statement there that at that point we only had besides Jimpa, we only had the FPMT translation, and they had translated it as they didn't translate cataracts. I can't remember exactly the context. Here, what that means is that, like when you have cataracts, I was just at the eye doctor, what was it, day before yesterday or something, and there I was talking to someone else talking about he had cataracts removed. So cataracts cause this sort of like something that obscures reality to you. It's something that's covering reality, so you can't see it clearly. If they're very, very thick, you can't see at all. So here, the entity of the conventional nature, as opposed to the ultimate, which is other than the ultimate, gains its existence by means of the perception of ordinary beings whose mental eyes, the analogy here, are completely covered by the darkening cataracts of ignorance. So ignorance of inherent existence is what prevents ordinary beings from seeing reality. What they see is what they believe. Even though these things, these appearances, even to 10th level bodhisattvas, appear to be inherently existent, they all appear to be inherently existent, but ordinary people, due to ignorance, believe them because their mental eyes are completely covered over by the darkening cataracts of ignorance. Its own entity, its own nature, that is its own conventional nature, does not exist in accordance with how it appears to be established by way of its own character as an object seen by childish beings. What does that mean? Its actual entity, its actual nature, conventional nature, which could be established once you've realized emptiness, does not exist in accordance to how it appears to ordinary beings, as though it was existing from its own side, existing by its own character as an object seen by childish beings. This is one of the two entities. Okay. Some are still lost. John, you lost? Okay.
No, thank you. I don't think I'm lost, but I am trying to imagine how that sentence works without what if you leave out established by way of its own character if you just say its own entity does not exist in accordance with how it appears to childish beings.
Yeah, that would still work. And how does it appear as though it was established by means of its own character? That's another way of saying as though it's established inherently existent.
It exists from its own side.
Yeah, same thing.
I think Jeffrey needed a few extra words in there. It said something like, its own entity does not exist in accordance with how it appears. That is, that it appears to be established by way of its own character as an object seen by childish beings. I think that's a qualifier that.
Okay.
Super
So
precise.
let's take a short break. If you need to go to the okay, we're already recording. So I was going to say, those who have gone off for a cup of tea, please come back. We're about to start. Good discussion during the break. Some people remained around. So good to see you. Okay, so let's continue a little bit further. Is the beginning to make sense? Is it still like this, or is it? That's okay. Thumbs up for some Richard. I'm not sure that. Okay, I thought this was some mudra. You were pinching your chin as though that was.
No,
okay.
no.
Okay.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Not like the thinker or something like that. Okay. So, so having just explained very briefly this kind of meaning of ultimate nature and meaning of conventional nature and some kind of misconceptions about them, especially about the ultimate, then Jeffrey's translation continues. Chandrakirti's statement thus that as regards to finding of the ultimate truths, the finders are superiors, that is, beings on the path of seeing or above, so that Arya beings, right? So where does that statement come from? Finding of ultimate truths are found by superiors. Where does that come? Does anyone? That comes in his.
Because it has to be, because only Arya beings are able to see it in meditative equipoise, right?
Well, his Bhashyam says.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Okay.
so that's not clear from the way that it's stated here. Chandrakirti's statement, that means in the Bhashyam, that as regards to finding of the ultimate truths, the finders are superiors. So the ultimate truth are found by superiors, by Arya beings, is made in consideration that the main beings that perceive it are superiors. The main of those who realize ultimate truths are superiors. He is not asserting that ultimate truths are not found also by common beings who possess the middle way view in their mental continua, or continuums, if you like to be modern. What does that mean? People, we've talked about this many times. People before the path of seeing can realize emptiness, and the path of preparation, bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas on the path of accumulation and preparation, even before the end of the path of preparation, can realize emptiness. Even beings before the path, before entering the path, the Mahayana path, people can realize emptiness. So that's just, is not at all saying that that Aryas are the only ones who can find the ultimate. Also, with regard to finding conventionalities, Chandrakirti's statement that the finders are ordinary common beings is made with regard to, in consideration that they are the main perceivers of external and internal things, which are illustrations of conventionalities, through being under the other influence of ignorance. other influence. How does Chimpa translate that? Although individual examples of conventional truths such as a vase and so forth can be obtained even by those who have not found the middle way, views. No, that's not. Similarly, the statement that it is the ordinary common person who obtains conventional reality should be understood in the sense that perceptions of outer and inner phenomena, which are instances of conventional reality, occur primarily through the power of ignorance. It is not the case that Chandrakirti says these phenomena cannot be found or obtained by the valid conventional cognizers of the Aryas. So there's one phrase here in both translations where we're talking about instances of conventional reality, or as Jeffrey says, illustrations of conventionalities. So what's that talking about? As regarded the finding of conventionalities, Jeffrey's translation says, Chandrakirti's statement that the finders are ordinary common beings is made in consideration, or in the sense that they are the main perceivers of external internal things, which are illustrations of conventionalities. They are the main perceivers of inner and outer things, which are illustrations of conventionalities. Who can unpack that? Where did John went off to get a flashlight to find the way, I think. Okay. Can you unpack that, Paul? What does that mean?
Which does which mean? I'm sorry, could you say that again?
So ordinary beings, the statement that the finders of conventionalities are common beings, which is in the Bhasham somewhere, is made in the sense that they are the main perceivers. Common beings are the main perceivers of external and internal things, illustrations of conventionalities, or you could say, which are illustrations of conventionalities.
Right.
Jimpa says, common beings who obtain conventional reality should be understood in the sense that perceptions of outer and inner phenomena, which are the instances of conventional reality, occur primarily through the power of ignorance. What does that mean?
Well, I assume what it means is that in general, when you're talking about it, you're referring to ordinary beings who see conventional phenomena. But of course, a Buddha sees conventional phenomena as well, but he's not the one who's being referred to here.
The word illustration or instance.
Oh, yeah, kunsobki tenshi. I was wondering about that myself.
Okay. So does anyone have an insight into that? So here, okay, Richard.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't understand what's unclear. I mean, basically, he's saying these are instances, these perceptions are instances, they're examples. What's the
object? They perceive objects. They perceive objects. They perceive inner and outer things. You can just say things, inner and outer. You say they perceive things, which are
and they're simply examples. They're examples of conventionalities.
Which it says here, which are illustrations or instances of conventionalities. So the point being that same thing that we were talking about earlier. They perceive conventionalities, but they don't realize them as conventionalities. Like the example I gave way back when we were talking about Lorik, you may be in a crowd and you see at the time, I think I used the example President Clinton. You see him, but you don't realize that that's Clinton, right? you can, so here they perceive external, perceive impermanent phenomena, inner and outer things, which are illustrations of conventionalities. They are instances of conventionalities. So what does that mean? Or as Richard is saying, examples of. Example is not exactly the right term. When we talked about illustrations or instances before, if you have a set, right, with a whole bunch of things within it, in this case, would it be what? Conventionalities, conventional phenomena. Any particular one is an instance of that generality.
So he's making a philosophical argument, right? He's just being very philosophically precise that you're not perceiving the general category of conventionalities. You're perceiving actual conventional phenomena. Is that the way it's should understand that, Venerable George?
I think, yeah. So they're made in consideration, or in the sense that common beings are the main perceivers of things, inner and outer things, which those inner and outer things are instances of conventionalities. Yeah, maybe you could say a little bit philosophical point, through being under the influence of ignorance. When it says the other influence, what does Jempus translate here? He just says through the power of ignorance. So that means that ordinary beings are under the influence of, or under the power of, under the dominion of their ignorance, which is other than them. They're under they're like in the various prayers that we say of confession, under the influence of the nyamongwa, the afflictions of ignorance, attachment, and hatred. I have circled within cyclic existence since beginningless time and have created the 10 non-virtuous actions, the 10 actions, the 5 actions of immediate retribution, the 5 actions close to that. So under the influence of, here the word other is in the Tibetan, because it's saying that, you're not under your own control, you're not under your own dominion, your own control. You're under the control of something other than your own wishes, your own self. So that sentence ends, he is not asserting that these things are not found by conventional valid cognitions in the continua of superiors, of Aryas. He's just giving the example that ordinary beings are the main perceivers of these things. Okay. So then how are we doing? So we're continuing. Just checking. Anyone's glazed eyes here? Okay, can't tell. Okay. Oh, Rachel, you have a question?
So is he making a distinction between having an instance of realization and I mean, how does someone that's an Arya being have like, how do you, what is the point of crossover when somebody who's in the ordinary being category can have an instance of, but not be able to be, I mean, is that important to look at and I hope I feel like I'm not making
instance
sense.
was only in this one, so you don't have to worry about that. The point is that when you talk about ultimate truths, so earlier it was said there was this thing about it is not at all the case. Remember, what was that just a couple of pages ago? It is not at all the case that they are perceived by these two categories of of people, that the two truths are perceived by the two categories of people. This is going over that same thing now in explanation, that when we talk about conventionalities, both Arya beings, when they're not in meditative equipoise and emptiness, they perceive conventionalities, and ordinary beings perceive conventionalities. In terms of the ultimate, ordinary beings can perceive the ultimate also, and Arya beings who are renowned for their direct realization of the ultimate, they perceive it. So there's sort of like an equal footing here. It's just saying that when Chandrakirti mentions in the Bhasham, because this is meant as a commentary to Chandrakirti's auto-commentary, right?
Venerable George?
Yes.
So when he's talking about ordinary beings perceiving ultimate truths, I assume he's talking about inferential realizations?
Right.
Not,
yeah.
Right.
That's still real. That's still realization, right?
Right.
So when we talk about realization, there are only two kinds: direct realization and inferential realization. So, which is conceptual realization. So the beings before the path can have a, conceptual realization of emptiness. Say, for instance, the sharp bodhisattvas, they necessarily have a conceptual realization of emptiness beforehand, which enables them to practice equalizing and exchanging self and others. You remember those arguments and so forth. And there are other beings that have scholars, have some, before they enter into the path, they can have inferential realization of emptiness. They've gotten at it. They've eliminated the superimpositions and so forth. Okay, let's go a little bit further. I'm reading Jeffrey now, mainly just in this section. The finding, that is to say, the realization of pots and so forth, which are illustrations of obscurational truths, conventional truths, does indeed occur among those who have not found the view of the middle way. However, in order to find with valid cognition that something is a conventional truth, an obscurational truth. So he's translating this term in the Tibetan text will be kunsop dempa, which is, as you remember, one of the ways that the Tibetans translated samvriti satya. Samvriti had these three different kind of meanings: something which obscures, something which is relative, and something which is dependent. Remember, we talked about that. It will come later in more detail, these three, the etymology of samvriti. But here it's talking about, however, in order to find with valid cognition that something is a conventional truth, an obscurational truth, that is to say, to recognize it as an obscurational truth, not just to recognize Clinton, but to realize that is Clinton. You say, I saw that guy up there, and someone else says, that was Bill Clinton. Oh, I saw him, but I didn't know that was Clinton. Kind of like that, right? In order to do that, one definitely must have previously found the view of the middle way. This is because if something is established as an obscurational truth, as a conventional truth, it must be established as a falsity. You must have realized that it is not actually true, that it is its mode of appearance does not jibe, if you will, with its mode of subsistence. Remember, what is the difference between truth and falsity here? Truth is that which exists the way that it appears. Falsities are things that don't exist the way that they appear. And for Prasangika, all conventional phenomena are falsities because they appear to be inherently existent, whereas they are not. Right? Louise, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I didn't. I meant, are you following? Okay. I just, yeah, I'm feeling okay. Okay. Rocio, I expect something more. How are you
Doing
doing?
well also.
Are you following?
Yes, I'm following.
Okay, okay, that's my point. It wasn't just like, how are you doing? Okay. This is because if something is established as an obscurational truth or conventional truth, it must be established as being false. And in order to establish that something is false, is a falsity, it is necessary first to refute with valid cognition that it is truly existent, that it is truly established. So how can you prove that conventionalities are falsities, that they are false? You have to first refute with valid cognition that it is truly established. That means in meditative equipoise, before you directly realize the emptiness of that, you engage in the union of tranquil abiding and penetrative insight, analyzing, searching if that is truly established, if that is truly existent. It is necessary first to refute with valid cognition. That means this meditative equipoise within which you have a union of calm abiding and penetrative insight. So you are analyzing, even though it's a meditative equipoise, there are moments of analysis where you're not simply when you have a union of calm abiding and penetrative insight, shine and lakton, shamatha and vipassana. So there's sometimes when you're analyzing and you lose the stability of the shine, but you're still within that union. You're still generally in that very specialized state. So within that, you're searching for something that's truly existent. And through analysis, you find that it does not exist as truly existent. Let's say, we just talked about it is not produced from in the four ways, or it is not, it is not independent, it is empty of inherent existence because it's a dependent arising and so forth. Various kinds of reasonings you would have that you can establish. To establish that something is a falsity, it's necessary to first refute with valid cognition that it is truly existent, truly established. Therefore, with respect to Chandrakirti saying that the entity of the conventional, which is other than the ultimate, as opposed to the ultimate, gains the existence of its own entity through the force of the perception of falsities by common beings. That's a statement with some added words for clarity from the Bhasham. That's what Chandrakirti said. The entity of the conventional, how I like to phrase that, which is other than the ultimate, gains the existence of its own entity. It also it gains, or the existence of its own entity comes about through the force of the perceptions of falsities by common beings. Although these ordinary persons see falsities, Okay, so we were talking about the entity or the conventional nature, right? That conventional nature comes about through the force of the perception of falsities by common beings. That means their perception of conventional phenomena which don't exist the way that they appear. Although those ordinary beings, ordinary persons see falsities, they do not necessarily establish them as falsities. He said they do not necessarily. Maybe some of them can, if they have the right view of the prasangika. They're ordinary beings who have not yet realized emptiness directly, but they can, some of them can establish them as falsities, but they do not necessarily establish them as falsities. This is just like the fact, for example, that when an audience at a magic show sees an illusory horse or elephant, remember our analogies, many analogies before about this, the magician who has put a spell on something, stone or a stick or something, and has some kind of spell on the audience also. Those who are in the presence might see his or her creation of a horse or elephant. This is just like the fact, for example, that when an audience that's under the influence of the magician at a magic show sees an illusory horse or elephant, although they are seeing falsities, they do not necessarily establish that those appearances are falsities. The audience can be oblivious. They think there's a real horse, there's a real elephant. Therefore, to be found by a perceiver of falsities that posits it as an obscurational truth means to be found by a conventional valid cognition that comprehends a false object of knowledge, that is to say, a deceptive object, but does not necessarily realize that it is a falsity. What did that say? Therefore, to be found by a perceiver of falsities found by a perceiver of falsities. So the perceiver of falsities might be your own perception of a flower or a tree or something that ordinary people can believe to be real, to be true. To be found by a perceiver of falsities that posits it as an obscurational truth means to be found by a conventional valid cognition that comprehends a false object of knowledge, a deceptive object, but does not necessarily realize that it is a falsity. Whoa.
How can you not recognize it as a falsity if you posit it as an obscurational truth?
There you go.
Yeah, can I add on to that? It almost seems like in translating this obscurational truth, which is Kunzop Dempa, he's almost like shifting it. Like if you were to replace obscurational truth with relative truth there.
Yeah.
Or conventional truth, yeah.
Conventional would be better. Then it makes more sense to me, Shanka, because I have the same kind of puzzle that you're reacting to, I think.
Right, but I think, it's the difference between seeing a body of water in the distance as a body of water and seeing a mirage in the distance as a body of water. One of those, in both cases, you're perceiving falsities, right? But one of those is not valid as an act in terms of valid cognition. And one of them is the result of a conventional valid cognition. The other one is not.
Right.
But I mean, I guess the context in which we are talking about obscurational here means that it's an object of it's a truth for an obscured mind, right? That's what obscurational means here. So if you are a cognition that knows that it's a truth for an obscured mind, you must know your mind is obscured, right?
No,
What if
you're
we-
so obscured you don't even know what you don't know. It's
Right.
I'm trying to find in
Most of us.
I can see Dick Cheney here.
I'm trying to find in Jimpa's text the
That was more Rumsfeld, actually.
Oh yeah.
What
Okay.
if we take Paul's analogy and take it a step further? And is it also whether or not you're aware that you're seeing the mirage?
You mean whether or
because
not
if you were aware that you were seeing the mirage, then you would be having a conventional valid cognition of a mirage, not of water.
I guess yeah, that's right.
But you're
Let me just read what Jimpa has said.
Excuse me, does some of this
Translate-
have to do with the fact that we don't keep track of what we know to be ultimately true every moment? We fall into the habit trap of acting as if, and for that moment, perceiving things to be conventionally, that are only conventionally true. We perceive them as real.
Yeah, generally people, ordinary people don't talk about a differentiation between conventionally true and ultimately true. They talk about things as being true or false. That is, in the conventional perspective, a mirage, the appearance of a mirage as water is false, and the appearance of a pond as water is true. They don't talk about ultimate. Let me just read what the corresponding section that we just read in Jeffrey in Jimpa's text. Although individual examples of conventional truth, such as vase and so forth, and so on, can be obtained even by those who have not found the middle way view, or say instances of conventional truths or illustrations of conventional truths, such as a vase and so on, can be obtained even by those who have not found the middle way view. To ascertain a particular phenomenon as a conventional truth by means of a valid cognition, one must first gain the middle way view. Okay. In order to establish or ascertain, to realize that something is a conventional truth, you have to first realize the middle way view. Because if a given phenomenon has been established as a conventional truth, right? If you know that something is a conventional truth, this would mean that it would be established as false. That is a falsity, right? If you've established that it is a conventional truth. And to establish something explicitly as false, one first has to negate true existence with respect to that phenomenon by means of valid cognition. So one has to have that reasoning in meditative equipoise, analyzing and developing an inferential cognition that knows that it is not truly existent, that realizes that it is not truly existent, at least, right? One first has to negate true existence with respect to that phenomenon by means of valid cognition, or a valid cognition. Therefore, although as suggested by the phrase, quote, through the force of false views. That was, I think that was in the root verse. Therefore, although as suggested by the phrase, through the force of false views, ordinary common people, common beings, perceive false realities, this does not imply that they establish these phenomena as false, right? For example, when the spectators at a magic show see conjured horses and elephants, they do see false things, right? But they do not necessarily establish these perceptions to be false. So there may be someone in the crowd who's been to magic shows before, who's under the influence of the magician, and sees these, and is saying, I know, nudging the guy next door, I know this is not real, I think that's why he puts in there, not necessarily establish these perceptions to be false. Usually the audience under the influence of the magician will see them. They do not see false things. They do see false things, but they do not necessarily establish these perceptions to be false. Generally, you could say they don't establish them as these perceptions to be false. They think they're true. Therefore, the fact obtained through seeing false reality, which defines something to be a conventional truth, refers to that which is obtained by valid conventional cognition, perceiving false and deceptive objects of cognition. Okay, so I'm just going to read a little bit ahead for next time. We're going to go over this again on Monday and on our next class. This is a little bit confusing, right? What do you think? Yeah. John's lost. Richard is not. Richard, can you, maybe you can.
I'm not sure I can explain it, but I do think I understand it. I think,
okay, good.
I think
it's understandable. So it's just that as John knows from Hatha Yoga, you need to have a continuity of practice in order to progress. So if you miss a couple of sessions, sometimes you have to sort of go back and catch up, and you might be lost for a while. Like right now, to do Hatha Yoga, I've lost my continuity, Okay. So let me just read it. So therefore, reading in Jimpa 6, therefore the fact obtained through seeing false reality, which defines something to be a conventional truth, refers to that which is obtained by valid conventional cognition, perceiving false and deceptive objects of cognition. Whoa. Jeffrey says, therefore, to be found by a perceiver of falsities that posits it as an obscurational truth means to be found by a conventional valid cognition that comprehends a false object of knowledge, a deceptive object. And then he has in parentheses, but does not necessarily realize that it is a falsity. So that's a bit complicated. So think about that. Go back and forth between those two translations. Jimpa's translation continues, of these two natures or realities, or as Hopkins says, furthermore, between the two natures or entities, of these two natures or realities described above, conventional and ultimate, what is seen by perfect vision, the object obtained by a rational cognition, realizing that perfect truth, is suchness. So here he's talking about a rational cognition. Jeffrey translates it as rational consciousness. I usually translate it as reasoning consciousness. It sounds more logical to me. The object obtained by a reasoning consciousness that analysis, realizing that perfect truth is suchness, the ultimate truth. This will be explained below in the section pertaining to the lines. Through the force of an eye disease, one perceives such false things as floating hairs. So there's like just in my eye exam the other day, the nurse was asking me, have I had more floaters? That's the general term that's used when you go to see the eye doctor. Some debris within your, what is it? Within the fluid, I think. There's various kinds of little things that can float around in there. And you
I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's called the vitreous humor.
Yeah.
Vitreous, yeah.
Vitreous humor. That's right. So that's very famous. And, when people have a very bad case of that, they might think that they see falling hairs in front of them, such as falling hair. So we're going to stop there now. We're going to review that last little bit from about conventional valid cognition, and then continue here next time. And on Monday, we'll go over questions. Before we end with the dedication, anyone have any questions? Can I see?
I just want to say,
Yeah,
I don't have a question, but I just want to truly, I am so grateful for you giving us these teachings. That's all I wanted to say, because without such teachings, we'd be lost. So thank you very much.
Well, we would have, you have, we have had so many teachings that sort of talk about, they just don't go so deep into the implications. And so you do have an understanding, but now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. So I appreciate all of your effort in sticking by this, and giving me the opportunity to review it again and to, share in our exploration of this. Okay, so we're going to dedicate some merits now. I want to particularly think of Charlie McDowell, my old friend who is experiencing colon cancer was spread to his liver and intestines back over in Singapore. Poon King, who would know him, she'll be watching the recording of this later. So hopefully she'll do some things. Thanks for him also. So if you go further to the actual dedication, I think, yeah, just after that, there we go. Due to these virtues, because virtues are both merits and wisdom, collection of wisdom, the Tibetan says gewa. So gewa, that which is virtuous, doesn't have to be only a merits. It can be the collection of wisdom. So due to these virtues, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception. Very important to think, even those people you find repulsive now that you write letters to the New York Times about, criticizing. May I lead all migrators without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but grow, but increase more and more. And for our peerless teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of children of the conquerors, as well as the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. Children of the conquerors means the Bodhisattvas, so that means the Bodhisattvas, Shravakas, and Pratika Buddhas, all of the people who have entered into the path. Victorious Losang Drakpa, Lama Tsongkhapa, who is the spiritual father, along with your spiritual sons and your lineages up until the present, all the objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow upon us now the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace, passed away, took the aspect of passing away. At this, I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta, mind generation, of the children of the victorious ones, the bodhisattvas, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us, fortunate disciples. And then for all our spiritual friends, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateways for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by mercy, illuminating spiritual friends, please live long and stable life. And think in particular, all of the merits that we've created in the past, the present, and the future, may they become the cause of overcoming the strife found in the world right now in Gaza, in the Ukraine, in our houses in the United States, our houses of the representatives and Congress and so forth. May it help to overcome the dependently arisen earthquakes, floods, fires, windstorms, and in particular, as all sentient beings, as example, Charlie McDowell, may these merits be the cause that they, depending on what's most beneficial, asking the Dharma protectors if it's better to pass away now or better to recover. May these merits bring about what is most appropriate. Okay, thank you so much for your patience. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to seeing some of you on Monday and hopefully all of you next Saturday. And be good. Oh, Mintu, big heart to you, Mintu. Also.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Anna.
Stay well, Venerable George.
And everyone.
Thanks, everybody.